When I finally heard him say, let's walk away, let's get quiet, I just had to do it. And I just had to trust that whatever was next would be okay.
I am here today with Rachael Lampa, and you know her from songs like Perfectly Loved and Somebody to You, but I'm geeking out because I know you as No Greater Love, Rachael Lampa. Do you remember that one?
Barely.
Rachael was big in the 2000s as like a teenager, like hardly even a middle schooler, and you became so big in the Christian music scene that I told her I have all of your albums. I don't even know where they are, probably at my parents' house because I will not let them throw them away. And what was it like coming up and like getting famous at 14, 15? I mean, I was a disaster at those ages.
I got really, really blessed with obviously a good family, obviously good parents like that were by my side almost 100% of the time. But also there was like a really good protection around me. Of like I truly didn't understand a lot of what was going on. Like
how
I didn't
big you
understand
were?
the business side at all. I remember
who does at that age?
Yeah, I know who does now. I'm still trying to figure it out. And so I think that was a really beautiful part of it was that there were times where, there was a lot of pressure that was on me that I didn't even recognize as pressure.
What a gift.
I really, when I look back, I see a girl who really loved to sing and who was getting to know the Lord, like, like in a very 14-year-old way and not in a 30-year-old way, know? And I think that there was something about that was, that was that worked for me because I think I really felt like a kid, and I tried to act like a kid. I think I did. I think I did a good job.
As a fan, you like disappeared, girl.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did she go? Where is my music? But it sounds like that was a very intentional choice from you. So can you tell me about that decision?
Yeah. So I was about 21. I had, I think I had maybe done like 3 studio albums and like a couple like extra like remix albums and stuff like that. And I just could not get to a place where I was inspired again to write something or create something. I just felt so tired. I was just so tired.
You had like burnout probably at 21 when most of us start our careers.
Right.
You'd already been doing it for almost a decade.
Right. Yeah. Which was such a weird thing for me to walk into my label, as my friends are all starting their careers to sort of end my career possibly, But I think it was one of the first times in my life that I felt like I could hear his voice really, really well, God's voice really, really well. And that just sustained like the peace about it all because it, there were tons of people around me being like, I don't think you should do that.
Wow.
There's and there were a lot of people that like depended on me to keep working.
What pressure?
Yeah, it was when the pressure started, I think, was that around that age. And I think, but just knowing that I was hearing God's voice was it, and that was something that I wasn't hearing enough to make the music. Like I could not decipher who was who, like, is this my manager talking? Is this my label talking? Is this my heart? Is this where's God's voice? So, when I finally heard him say, let's walk away, let's get quiet, I just had to do it. And I just had to trust that whatever was next would be okay. And so that was a daily thing. There were definitely probably more days than not that I didn't think it was going to be okay, but we figured it out.
So brave, honestly. I think any leap of faith like that requires so much bravery. But I think if you have a peace that this is of the Lord, then you know he's going to take it somewhere good eventually.
Yeah.
And so would you walk us through those next few years and what you had to do internally to like get quiet? Because I think a lot of us in the craziness of life need to find a version of that now.
Right. Yeah. The first thing I did was become a nanny. I was like, what should I have been doing? No, it was not quiet. It was not quiet. And it was so cute.
I got kids.
I know, right? I was like, what should I have been doing as a teenager? Like babysitting.
We'll do that. The Babysitters Club.
Right?
We're doing it.
Oh my gosh, exactly. So I did that for like a year and just like totally separated myself. And then, through a chain of events, through lots of like decisions and ruminating and prayer, I moved to LA with one of my best friends, and I ended up singing background for Jordin Sparks for a little while, and we went on tour with the Jonas Brothers and Britney Spears, and
everybody in this room is geeking out right now.
Isn't that weird?
Yes, that is very weird.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Did any of them know that you had your own career?
They all grew up on my music. Yeah. They all, it was really sweet.
Joe Jonas is a fan. No, we don't.
Yeah, he helped my husband propose to me on that tour, and
that is a story that we need the full details of another time. Oh my word, Rachel, that's crazy.
It is wild. But what I got to do was stand in the shadows and sing oohs and ahs, and just go back to what it felt like to start singing when I was, 5 years old. Like,
did you find the enjoyment again?
Yes, because I felt like there was no pressure, there was no words. It was just oohs and ahs. It was literally just, isn't it weird? Like, it was just me and God. Yeah, it was like it was reconnecting me with when I first fell in love with music and when God first like handed me that gift to enjoy. And I think sometimes like with gifts, here on earth, we give a gift to somebody and then we don't say, hey, go use it, go share it right now. I think we want this other person to enjoy the gift, and I think I needed to re-enjoy that, and re-experience that. And so being able to still do music, be around people. I loved being around people. But also just kind of sit back there in my own world and ooh and ah. It was I don't know, it was such a gift.
It's like the pressure was gone, maybe that aspect.
Majorly.
And I think there's such a big lesson here and a takeaway, I think, for all of us that sometimes when we're in the shadows and in the dark and you don't know what God is doing, like that's when he's doing some of the most work.
Yes.
And you probably thought, oh, this is just like a tour. This is just like a gig and a job. And God was like, actually.
Yeah, he's like, it never is.
and it sounds like you met your husband during that season, which sounds amazing. And then I was talking to somebody a few years ago and they were like, did you know that Rachael Lampa is on like NBC right now? And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like the sing-off show. Oh. And so I'd never watched it, but I was like, well, I'm going to watch it to see you. And so I know that's another thing you ended up doing.
There was all a bunch of lead singers of bands from Nashville. And then me and my friend Ruby, we sing backgrounds for people a lot. And so we were the two girls and then a bunch of dudes from Nashville that we kind of knew. And they just wanted a Nashville group. I mean, sorry, it's not fancy, but they just wanted a Nashville group. And so we're like, let's try. And so none of us had sung a cappella before. And so we showed up the first day and I like find these little friends that are just like my favorite people. Like they're teaching me how to read music because I totally don't know how to read music. Like they just look at a sheet of paper and they can sing it. And I'm like,
that's wild.
Can't do that. And they were pentatonics. And so we were like, we're not going to win. You're going to win. So
wait, this was the season when they won?
Mm-hmm. So we were like, let's just enjoy this while we can because you guys everybody knew the whole season.
To teach you music.
Yeah.
You were like, Also, they like sing with the president this now.
I know.
Whoa, but you guys made it really far.
I don't know. I think it was like 7th runner-up is what we like to call it.
Like that's pretty far, Rachel. Against the pentatonics. Y'all were probably flipping tables when they sang. That's insane.
So good.
Okay, so that's another phase of your life. And then tell me, like, what made you go, I'm going to dive back into the pool of music where I intentionally left. What made you go, I'm ready?
Okay, so I me and my family live here in Nashville. We run a nonprofit called People Loving Nashville.
I wanted to ask you about that too.
Yes.
We'll come back to that.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's what brought me back to it, because we started working with people here in Nashville that are experiencing homelessness, are experiencing incarceration, are just in a tough place in their life. And so we just happened to like have a lot of friends that had time and the heart to like start building community. So we started just hanging out every week, bringing clothes and food, and it started to grow and grow and grow. We have a little program called Wild Ones, and we go to the women's jail. And we spend time with those girls. Yeah. So I started doing that for years and years and years. We would go in, some of us would go in 5 days a week. I would probably went in 2 to 5 days a week, depending on the week. And then, but we would go in all the time, and then COVID hit and we weren't allowed to go back in anymore. So I went to my small group, catching them up on my life, and they were like, "There's a song there. That's you need to write a song for them." And I was like, "I'm not a singer anymore."
You're like, "No, thank you.
You write it." And they're like, "Okay, we'll write it." No, so it was Andrew Ripp and Ethan Hulse are in my small group, and so that's what happens when you're in a small group in Nashville. There's going to be a songwriter or two in your small group.
Perfect, though.
It was great, yeah. And so I was like, "Okay, let's just write it. We'll have fun with it," and then. It just kind of...
So that was the first song?
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. And we just... I was going to just send it back to the girls in jail. And then they, people started saying, we need to hear that. More people need to hear that song. And then Toby became involved because his wife teaches the Bible classes at Wild Ones. So she would come in with us every week. She was a 5 days a week girl. And so he knew these girls, he knew what we were, so he was just like, yes, whatever you want to do for them, I'll be part of. And so it just like,
so it was an accident
together. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, not with God.
For us, yes.
Right.
He knew.
God intentionally brought you back. Was there any reservation when like radio's starting to pick these things up and you're like, okay, it's happening again?
Totally.
Was there any part of you that went, okay, I need to make sure I do this differently?
Totally. Yes. Yeah, totally. Because it's a lot of years later, a lot of years later. And so certain things started to kind of bubble up, and it was just a good opportunity for me to like, go find healing with the Lord, with therapy, with friends, with like just opening up, being more honest with myself. And just, it's been so much more than just putting out a song, and then just being able to like do life with people again through music has been so cool. I mean, just even like, I didn't have Instagram back then. So it's like now getting to like interact with people about the ways that these songs, I'm like, oh, this is what this is for, and
get to see what's on the other side faster,
totally.
more
yeah,
often.
Exactly.
Which can be good and can be bad.
Totally,
because
yes.
people get full access to you.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm imagining one of the things you probably had to work on was like identity and knowing like who you are now and who you're not.
Yes.
And one of the labels that you have now is mom. You were not a mom when you did this before.
Right.
And as someone who is also a working mom with 2 kids, you had a son like a year and a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And that's like at the height of all of this, like picking up interviews, tours, songs, like hitting it big.
Yeah.
How are you doing it?
I mean,
tell us.
We're just keeping it simple. We're just keeping it really, really small and really close. My family, my friends, like really close friends we're the label. We're working radio together. We're doing, we're just keeping it really sweet and honest and saying no probably more than I've ever said no in my life, and that's so hard. But just like taking care of the things that are the most important, and again, like just a testament to what God does, because if I would have planned it out, I would have either waited till after kids were bigger or not done it at all, but he's like, no, we're going to do this right in the middle of all the big events in your life. And
you're in the not sleeping phase.
Yeah,
still.
totally. Yeah. My kid is pretty great. He sleeps like a champ. He's amazing. He's amazing. Yeah.
I feel like that's intentional.
Yeah.
Because that's not a normal story. Before you leave, I have to ask you about High Hopes because I was listening to it this morning and then I was taking my daughter into daycare and I was like, High Hopes, you got me. It's so catchy, which I don't, that was probably intentional, but tell me where it came from.
I was at Andrew Ripp's house, who I wrote this song with, and I said the word High Hopes, and he's like, that'd be a good song title. And that was it for a little while. And then I put it in my phone, and then like a few weeks later, we were like, let's write High Hopes. Let's see what happens. So it's one of those songs that you kind of like start with a title, and then you see what God wants to say through it. And then all of a sudden we're like, this is like a deeper song, and there's so much going on here. Like, and I think for us writing it, it was like, we want to write a song about hope, yes. But there was like this thing getting revealed about like what it means to have a high hope. Sometimes when I pray, I'm just like, I know what I want the answer to look like. But then there's this other thing that God does, you know, and he rains it down in so many different ways, and not just this one way that we, you know, hope for.
I think that's why I love Christian music, because what you just described, in my brain, that's like a really sweet, somber, slow song. And it's so fun.
Yeah,
There
I
can
know.
be such a fun song that has such deep meaning that, as I'm sure I'll be singing it with my kids in the car, you're like, but this is what I need. Like, I need to remember that God doesn't always answer my prayers how I want, but he's like putting my eyes on something higher, and that I can put my hope in him.